Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
You see Santa Claus tonight? You better run, boy. You better run for your life.
But Mother Superior, it's Santa Claus.
Now I have another reason to hate Christmas.
Now that hell is full, I wonder where you will go.
The caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house.
You're my family now.
But if you're bad boys and girls, your name goes in the bad boys and girls book, and I'll bring you something horrible.
Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
The All-American Spookshow Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the All-American Spookshow Podcast. I'm Josh, and I'm joined here with Donny.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoak.
Yippee-ki-yay.
I was wondering how long it would take somebody to do that today, and it's right out the gate. So, thanks for getting that out of the way.
What's the point?
Will is still under the weather. He wasn't able to come to the recording today, so we're going to power on without him, and hopefully we'll get his thoughts very soon here for the latest Cult Corner, Die Hard from 1988. So what better way to truly kick off the holiday season now that we've already had our turkey and our peas and everything else that comes along with Thanksgiving and chicken, apparently. Yeah,
Thanksgiving chicken.
Thanksgiving chicken. You came around the cornucopia in the middle of the table and you ate your chicken and turkey and all the rest. Now that you're full, your belly's full, you're tired of eating the leftovers. Like you've already had that like 4 days straight now. You're tired of that shit. You at least have to wait until Christmas before you get more ham and turkey and all that. But we're not serving turkey today. We've got a big one. Die Hard, 1988. This. I mean, do you want to have the discussion right out the gate whether this is a Christmas movie or not? I mean,
that's what I was thinking. I think we probably should just get right to it, right?
Yeah, just fuck it. Throw caution to the wind. Let's get to it. What do you think, Smoak?
Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of it being a Christmas movie. It's not Christmas Vacation. I think people get a little bit too carried away when they want to argue that it's not. No, it's not a holiday movie. It's set during the holidays. You got Christmas music playing at various points in it, including Christmas of Hollis Queens, right? The Run DMC song.
Yeah.
You got Christmas decorations. I mean, it's present. It's present more in this movie than it is even in some horror movies that are considered Christmas horror movies or whatever.
Yeah.
So I definitely am in the camp of it being something. Now I watch it anytime. It's not one of those movies where you can only watch. I watch it any time of year, of course, but it has become a tradition to watch it around the holidays too.
Donnie, what do you think? Christmas movie? Yay or nay?
Oh yeah, don't let anyone tell you differently. This is absolutely a Christmas movie, and it's
now. If you want to have a discussion, you could have a debate between this one and Lethal Weapon, because Lethal Weapon, I believe, does take place at Christmas, right? But it doesn't play really a role in it. Like there's barely a mention of it. So I think therein lies the difference. Is like you said, Smoak. This plays heavy into the movie. Now there is the part of the debate where you could say, just to play devil's advocate for a second, that this could happen. This incident could have happened at any time of the year, right? It's not because Christmas this happens, right? I mean, like these guys could decide a random day in July to take over Nakatomi Tower and do what they did, right? So there is that side of it where you might get that argument from some people, right? Like, well, it didn't take Christmas to make this happen. That being that being said, though, I think it's still a Christmas movie to me. It plays very heavy in it, like you said, the music, that just the whole vibe of the movie. Even though it's an action thriller, it's definitely a Christmassy type of movie, if it makes sense, and what's going on in certain aspects of it. Maybe not the whole theme of the movie, obviously, but it plays. It's there. So yeah, I think we all agree here. This is a Christmas movie, and in that spirit, welcome to the holiday season from the Spookshow gang here with Die Hard and our latest Cult Corner, like I said. But before we get too much deeper into it, and we'll explain our feelings and thoughts and everything else that's going to be connected to Die Hard here in just a minute, we want to get you to go on over and visit our new website, aaspookshow.com. That's pretty much the landing spot for everything in the Spook Show universe. You've got our YouTube channel, all of our social networks, of course. You've got our TeePublic page. You've got our Patreon, patreon.com/AASpookshow, you know, if you'd rather just go straight there. It's all there in one central location. Lots of cool stuff for you to check out, and we're always constantly updating it. So we encourage you to go check out aaspookshow.com. And if you want to email us or, you know, message us, of course, DMs over on any of the socials. But if you want to email us, it's allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for Die Hard.
We thank you one and all and wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
It's Christmas Eve in L.A. But a team of terrorists...
You want money? What kind of terrorists are you? Who said we were terrorists?
...have their own holiday plans.
And I'm telling you, you're just going to have to kill me. Okay.
We do it the hard way.
But the one thing they didn't plan on was New York cop John McClane.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake. Who knew?
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
And you'll have it.
They have already killed one hostage.
This channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
Lady, do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
Come to Papa, honey.
You really an American?
Only if New Jersey counts.
What does he think he's doing?
His job.
They're using artillery on us.
You idiot.
It's not the police.
It's him.
He's an easy guy to like.
Welcome to the party, pal.
And a hard man to kill. Bruce Willis. Die Hard.
All right, so there's that. So this movie premiered July 12th, 1988, and it was released July 15th, so just 3 days later in 88, on limited release, and then it opened wide 5 days later, so the next week, July 20th, 1988. It was produced by Gordon Company and Silver Pictures and distributed by 20th Century Fox. Of course, this movie is rated R. If you've ever watched this movie, you'll know this is a rated R movie. Total runtime of 2 hours and 12 minutes, which seems really long, right? It seems really long, but this movie doesn't feel like 2 hours and 12 minutes.
No, I was shocked by that. You know, a little over 2 hours, it zips by.
Yeah,
you know.
Unlike, for instance, the movie that we watched last week, Black Friday. Can you imagine if the runtime on that movie was 2 hours and 12 minutes? I mean, that's almost damn near an hour longer than Black Friday was, by, you know, shy of, 10 minutes or so. So can you imagine, Donnie?
Like an hour more of that?
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine?
I mean, yeah, I can, and I don't like it. But then again, maybe it would have had enough time to, you know,
hear the people bitching about their lives a little bit longer. Yeah, that's
well, no, it's just like, you know, for all the missed opportunities that was.
Okay, well,
maybe they could have made up.
Well,
but,
this movie
you know,
this movie is the direct opposite of that, as far as like
yeah.
setting things up and paying them off all throughout the movie. I mean, we'll get into it, but
yeah,
on IMDb it's listed as an action/thriller. The movie was filmed in and around Los Angeles, pretty much in Los Angeles at various locations. Los Angeles, California, of course. November 2nd, 1987, all the way through March 4th of 1988. Now, I'm sure that wasn't straight through. I'm sure there were brief periods, probably through the holidays and whatnot, where they, you know, stopped, because that's a long filming period. But it was done for a budget of $28 million, which that's got to be like one of the higher budgets we've ever, you know, maybe not ever, but it's got to be on the higher end of budgets for movies we talk about, right? Very rarely. Most of the movies we talk about, well, they did this for $650,000, you know.
And I think $5 million of that was Bruce Willis's cut.
And that's crazy.
That was what he was paid.
And even that's crazy, because he wasn't like what he became after this, right? Like, he wasn't top of the heap yet, was he? I mean, what was he known for before this? Like Moonlighting, something like that?
Yeah.
Blind Date. Did he do that movie Blind Date before this? Remember that movie? That was comedy.
Yeah, he did do that movie. I don't know. I don't actually remember when that movie was.
But for this was clearly his star making. This is like what took him from 0 to 60, so to speak, right? Known guy to all of a sudden everybody knows who this dude is. This is the movie that did it. But it had, for that budget of $28 million, it grossed worldwide $141.6 million. So made all that $28 million back and then some. They were swimming in a Uncle Scrooge's money bin after it was all said and done in this one. And if you count in the entire franchise that follows up, and we'll go through that here in just a second. But before we do that, I'm going to go back to not when it had the limited release, but when it opened up wide. So this would be July 22nd through the 24th. Its first, true weekend of where it had been out, in more theaters. This is the top 10 that weekend. July 22nd through the 24th, 1988. Number 10, Bull Durham. Number 9, Big. So a couple big ones right out the gate for sure. Number 8, not so big, Caddyshack 2. That's crapsterpiece material. Old Caddyshack 2. Like as much as
that nobody wanted. Well, the sequel that a lot of people wanted, but this is the shit we gave you.
yeah. Hey, you want a similar premise with almost no one that was in the first one? Here you go.
And how many years later?
Oh yeah, God, what is that? That was 88, so that's what 8 or 9 years later. Yeah. Number 7, Big Top Pee-wee. That's awesome. And that was in its opening weekend. Both those movies, by the way, Big Top Pee-wee and Caddyshack 2 were open this weekend. Number 6, Bambi. It was the re-release. I'm not sure how many re-releases it had at that point, but it was in its second week of re-release back then. Kids, this was before Netflix and everything, so like sometimes you didn't get to see them, if you didn't go rent them at at the rental store, or you didn't own a copy of it on VHS or something, you probably didn't get to see Bambi a lot of times. So Disney especially would tend to re-release some older movies back during this time period because you couldn't just go to Disney Plus and watch it. So that's what was going on there.
I doubt any kids are actually listening to our show.
True.
But
I don't look at I don't look that deep into the stats as far as our age bracket. But yeah, you're probably right.
I do. It's
parents. If your kid happens to be listening while you're listening, this is the way it was done. Number 5 also opened up this week. Midnight Run. Number 4, The Deadpool, and that doesn't have anything to do with Deadpool. Just The Deadpool. Isn't that a Bronson movie or a Eastwood movie?
That was Eastwood, Dirty Harry movie.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I knew it had one or the other.
One that had Guns N' Roses song. Maybe Slash was in the movie too. I don't know.
Man, it's been forever since I watched any of those Dirty Harry movies. Number 3, Die Hard. It made $7.1 million. So between that and what it had made the previous week in limited release, it just broke $10 million this week. So like I said, this was I'm mentioning this week because this is the one where it opened wide. Because it was 16th the week before. Number 2, Coming to America. Fucking classic, right? And number 1, another classic, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? And that's actually up from number 3 the previous week. So, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of other good movies playing at the time as well, such as Short Circuit 2, Crocodile Dundee 2. I don't know if that's a good one. License to Drive. The Great Outdoors, classic John Candy, Dan Aykroyd flick, that was playing at the time. So yeah, there was some competition, a lot of comedies too, right? Out of the ones that I just read, a lot of comedies playing at the time. So Die Hard certainly would have stood out, and the fact that it's in the middle of the summer, this is like a big blockbuster type of movie, right?
That also leads me. I was thinking about the whole Christmas debate thing. A lot of times people are like, well, if it were really a Christmas movie, it would have came out in December, But no, at that time, even now, but especially then, this was a summer blockbuster movie. No matter what season is going on in the movie, it's coming out in the summertime.
Yeah,
because they weren't going to come around with that kind of money back then, especially.
And I would have just been turned 8 at the time when this came out, and even I remember that not only this coming out, but like the everybody talking about it and stuff like that, even around that time period. So yeah, this was a big deal when it came out, and I think it's one of those ones that kind of grew week by week too. Like I don't have the whole breakdown here, but I think it actually gained steam the longer it was out, kind of movie. It's not like a lot of movies are today, where like say for instance we just had the latest Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, just came out recently. That odds are that's going to go down, right? And it's not shitting on the movie or anything. I just mean the way that it is now. Everybody goes that first week. And then maybe the second week, but then after that, everything dies. Whereas back then, man, a movie would play for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then actually, in some cases, gain, over time.
It was just a different game then.
Yeah.
It was just like a different level of, I mean, we have just about all ages listen to us, but with the exception of kids, but obviously, but no, it's like there was no streaming, there was no, I mean, VHS was expensive as shit.
Yeah, to buy it, yeah. I mean, the only way, say that this thing got released on VHS later, later on, the only way you were watching it was renting it or buying it. And like you said, those were expensive options. Now, granted, by this time period, things had come down to a level where you could probably afford to buy it, but still.
It was like $30.
Yeah, even then, yeah, probably.
Still something like that, and you had to really love that fucking movie.
Yeah. More often than not back then, people would just tape it. Like you would wait until it came on HBO or whatever the hell, and then you would just tape it and then just watch the hell out of it that way. That was the way more often.
There is that.
Yeah. Or, you just went and rented it a bunch of times at the local rental store or Blockbuster or something like that. But yeah, anyways, yeah, so like this movie made tons of money, no question about that. It was directed by John McTiernan, who had done Predator right before this. And he went on to do The Hunt for Red October, Last Action Hero, which I'm of the opinion that's an underrated action, Arnold Schwarzenegger flick.
And awesome soundtrack too.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that's one that we'll get to here on Cult Corner or some other method. We'll get to Last Action Hero sooner or later. He also,
I think that movie was of it, the time period it came out in. I guess people shitting on it, because it was what 91, 2, 3, well 92, 3, somewhere in there.
Somewhere, yeah, 92.
Kind of Schwarzenegger's, peak of his action career, so to speak. And that, I think that's why I think a lot of people reevaluated that movie.
And that's
Last Action Hero came out in 93.
Yeah, and that sounds about right. And that movie was very meta, which was ahead of its time, I think, in a lot of ways. Like, there weren't a lot of movies other than like parody movies, right? You had Airplane and you had movies like that kind of like, it's a parody of a movie that, pokes fun at it, right? But this one is like Scream in a lot of ways. It's very meta, but for an action flick. It's kind of making fun of, poking fun at the genre and all the tropes and everything. So, like, I think in a lot of ways that one was ahead of its time in that regard. But John McTiernan, after he directed that, he actually came back to Die Hard and he did the third one, Die Hard with a Vengeance. This movie, like all the other Die Hard movies, were based on novels by Roderick Thorpe. Apparently there was I didn't read deep into him, but apparently he had some novels that were called McLean or something like that, and that's what all this stuff is based off of. The screenplay was written by Jeb Stewart, who had written The Fugitive, another Stallone classic, Lock Up. He wrote another 48 Hours, and also Stephen E. D'Souza, who had wrote 48 Hours and Commando. So a lot of the same DNA here with your Stallone, your 80s and 90s Stallone flicks, Schwarzenegger flicks, and I think it shows on the screen, right? Like, this is what you're getting. It's the big epic action flicks of the 80s. And you get this one. This is probably, in my mind, one of the better ones of the time. So, but yeah, that as far as,
and I think,
go ahead.
Bruce Willis was like controversial. I think, because he hadn't done any action like this yet. So
yeah, you would think
that was kind of like,
you would think at the time in 1988, this has got Stallone or Schwarzenegger written all over it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably a lot of people were thinking that, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm just kind of speculating here. That's of why it picked up steam the further it went in, because that out of the gate, it did well out of the gate, but you probably had a lot of people that were like, "Who's Bruce Willis? Oh, he's done this moonlighting guy, he's he's an action hero now or whatever." And then the word of mouth got out about how good it was, and then it probably picked up steam. That's my speculation on it, because I know that at the time, I was a little older. I was a teen. I think I was 15 or so at the time when this came out. So I remember that I just remember the backlash kind of on like, Bruce Willis, really? An action star? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Then, bam, here you go, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. There it is. I got the whole thing out. Yeah, that's all like that. I mean, there's tons of background stuff on this, and I mean, we're not going to dive deep into all the stuff because there's a lot. I mean, we could probably go on for 2 hours, just on the background of some of this. But that's all some of the stuff I dug up on the surface. What else did you guys unearth?
There was actually Al Leong. He's one of the most recognizable henchmen from action movies of the 80s and 90s. He actually has his own documentary called Henchman, the Al Leong story. It's available on Prime. You can, rent it or, watch it there. I mean, it's kind of like, I guess this may be an obscure kind of, probably not really obscure, but maybe we do a spook show spotlight on, something like a Henchman or something. I don't know. It might be kind of interesting. And then also there was a Die Hard trilogy video game for PS1. It actually made its way to greatest hits. I own it. Yeah, I mean, I still enjoy it. I mean, I don't play it often, but during the time that we've watched, and I actually did give it another whirl, and it's still fun, still very playable. Also, there was a shot with McClane with the touchscreen. So the Star Trek films and TV show came out in 1966. They were one of the first, films and TV shows that showed a touchscreen. People interacting with touchscreens.
Yeah.
Also, this is also kind of background, and it took me a long time to realize that this was not Huey Lewis.
You mean that guy, one of the henchmen, the guy that was behind the counter?
Yeah. Actor Dennis Hayden looks a hell of a lot like Huey Lewis. And I thought it was Huey Lewis for decades.
I'd never thought about that. Like, I always just kind of figured the guy looked familiar, but now that you say that, he definitely.
I thought it was Huey Lewis for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until this week I realized it wasn't Huey Lewis. I was like, holy shit, because I was like, wait a second, Huey Lewis, I remember this. And then I looked for him in the credits, because I was doing the Crypt Connections. I was like, I didn't see Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
So I went back. I was like, holy shit, Dennis Hayden. So
there was a time where, like, I don't remember who it was. Somebody was trying to argue with me that Will Ferrell was in like one of the RoboCop movies. I'm like, there's no fucking way that like the time, it just doesn't match up. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then finally, like, somebody showed me like the movie, whichever one it was. I want to say it might have been RoboCop 3. Shows me the guy. It's not Will Ferrell, but he definitely looks like Will Ferrell. And I looked it up, and like, sure enough, it's not him. But yeah, I mean, you see that sometimes. There's some guys that look exactly like something, especially back then too. Right in the 80s and 90s and stuff, where it wasn't as easy as just I'll hop over to IMDb and look at their entire filmography.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the way it was. So like, yeah, when you saw a guy, you're like, oh, he looks like Huey Lewis, and then you just get it in your head, yeah, Huey Lewis was in Die Hard, right? And then somebody years later is like, no.
Your mind is made up that that's a fact.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, there's a name for it. I don't think it's not the butterfly effect. Maybe it is.
Is it the Helsinki syndrome? From Helsinki, Sweden?
Oh yeah, Helsinki, Sweden.
Finland.
Yeah.
But yeah, I failed to mention, we talked about it briefly, but this did spawn 4 more sequels after this one. Die Hard 2 came out July 4th, 1990, so just 2 years later. Die Hard with a Vengeance came out May 19th, 1995. Live Free or Die Hard came out June 27th, 2007, so that was 12 years after the third one. And then they wrapped it up with A Good Day to Die Hard on February 14th, 2013. So you can tell which one of these doesn't fit the other. Like, all the rest of these were like big summer blockbuster type flicks. And then after, I think the fourth one came out and was kind of disappointing, they eventually came back around and made the fifth one, but then it came out on Valentine's Day, where generally movies go to die. Like big movies like this especially, get made and come out in February. That's not the prime box office season for big movies. So yeah, I without looking up the numbers, I think that was they should have left well enough alone after the third one. That's the conclusion that I come to.
Another thing,
to come back with to bring Hans Gruber back, reanimate him from the dead. You know, like
Reanimator. I see you.
For those who maybe don't know, Hans Gruber is also a character name in Reanimator, in the first Reanimator, in the opening scene that takes place in Germany, right? There's a Hans Gruber there with no connection to this Hans Gruber.
Yeah. Reanimator was released in 1985 and obviously Die Hard in 88. Now, there was also something else.
Before you continue, just because it's something that he just mentioned about Hans Gruber, right? In the third movie, now wait a minute, before I continue, we are a spoiler-filled podcast, so just a reminder, if you haven't watched Die Hard, pause it, go watch it, come back. Also, if you haven't seen Die Hard with a Vengeance, maybe this is something that might be a little spoilery, so just keep that in mind. In the third one, the main villain of the movie is played by Jeremy Irons. He is Hans Gruber's brother, Simon Gruber. So yeah, they couldn't bring old Hans back, but they did find another Gruber come the third movie. So just throwing that out there. But go ahead, Donny.
Yeah, the Nakatomi Plaza. And this is, I guess something to think about, what could have been. But anyway, the Nakatomi Plaza is, that's the headquarters of 20th Century Fox or 20th Century. Yes.
Fox,
I guess it was Fox at that time.
Yeah, Fox Plaza is what it was called.
Yeah. So that was their headquarters. So they could basically, use one of their own buildings, didn't have to hold back on any stunts or action sequences. But, in the event that, that was not shot in LA or, shot somewhere else, and they had to, would this have been a different movie, or, would it have had a different look or different feel, or, it's kind of interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Doesn't change it at all, but,
Yeah.
Potential.
So yeah, there's tons. Like I said, we could go on and on. Is there anything else in particular? I'm sure we'll bring up some other stuff while we're diving into the movie, but was there anything else you guys wanted to point out before we get into it?
No, let's dive in.
I guess there's one little thing continuing on from what Donnie said about them shooting it in their own building was, I read that they had also, there's a lot of gunplay in this movie, but they're in there shooting in their own building, but apparently the noise was so loud that other people working on other things in the building complained about it, so they still had to shoot a lot of that gunplay footage in the overnights, even though it was their own building, just to not interfere with other stuff that was going on close to those floors where they were shooting the action scene.
It's refreshment time, and our refreshment stand is loaded with good things to eat. There's crispy, crunchy popcorn, and hot, delicious buttered popcorn, lots of candy, and frosty, refreshing cold drinks. Why not treat yourself at the Refreshment Center now?
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out the service. So I went over to Audible and I typed in Die Hard. Now, I've got a list of things here, but ironically, none of the McClane books by Roderick Thorpe are on Audible. So you have to go search those out in libraries and bookstores, read them like a normal human being. But there is some stuff to listen to over on Audible if you'd like to. There's Die Hard with a Vengeance by Deborah Chill. That one's right at 2 hours long, so that's clearly I guess a novelization of the third Die Hard movie. There's 58 Minutes, The Basis for Die Hard 2 by Walter Wager. That one is just under 7 hours long, so that might be kind of interesting, because I guess it's more of like exactly maybe comparing the events of that film that are completely different from this one for sure, to a real life scenario there. So that might be kind of interesting. And then there's another random one that has nothing to do with Die Hard. Old Loves Die Hard, a Mac Faraday mystery by Lauren Carr. And that one's almost 8 hours long. So yeah, plenty of options over on Audible, like always. Just not the Roderick Thorpe source material there on Audible. But if any of that sounds like it's your bag, go on over to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audio book. So like we normally do here lately, I'll hop on over to IMDb, and I'll click on the plot summaries. All right, so I've got, good Lord, there's a ton. I'm not going to read all these. There's a lot. But it's surprise, surprise, right? I mean, this is a big movie, so more people are going to try to lend their thoughts to it. So I'll read a couple and then the bigger one. The one sentence, easy one, is an NYPD officer tries to save his wife and several others taken hostage by German terrorists during a Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza in Los Angeles. This one was put up by Sam on IMDb. NYPD cop John McClane goes on a Christmas vacation to visit his wife Holly in Los Angeles, where she works for the Nakatomi Corporation. While they are at the Nakatomi headquarters for a Christmas party, a group of robbers led by Hans Gruber take control of the building and hold everyone hostage with the exception of John, while they plan to perform a lucrative heist. Unable to escape with no immediate police response, John is forced to take matters into his own hands. And then we've got probably the longest one on here. I'll go ahead and read this one. It was submitted by Ridley Levine on IMDb. John McClane is a cop from New York City who is on his way to Los Angeles to see his kids and his wife, Holly, who moved to L.A. because of a job at the Nakatomi Corporation. When he arrives at Nakatomi Plaza, he meets Holly's boss, Joe Takagi, and her co-worker, Harry Ellis. He and Holly go into a private bathroom and get into an argument. When Holly leaves to give a speech, 13 armed terrorists led by Hans Gruber seize control of the building and take the occupants of the 30th floor, who are the only ones left in the building, hostage. Luckily, they miss John and he has to figure out how to save the hostages before the terrorists get their way. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple premise, really. It is, you know, just terrorists and one dude that knows how to kick some ass is on the loose, and he's the only hope. He's got to bring them down. So that's your general premise of the movie, and then, you know, does it end happily or not? Well, you know, it's the 80s, so yeah, probably did. All right. To me, the first thing I wrote when I was making my notes while I was watching is like, this movie is like comfort food for me now. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've watched it so many times and it's so familiar to me now. It's just like, it's like sitting down to a bowl of hot soup on a rainy day or something. You know, I don't know how to put it. It's like, it's just awesome. It's just,
it never gets old.
No,
ever.
It really doesn't. I mean, I've seen it. I don't even tell you how many times I've seen this movie. And honestly, the second one and the third one too. I've seen them a number of times.
Yeah, like if I'm watching, like if I catch it in the, you know, if I catch it in the middle of it or, you know, just start of it, if I can control it at all, I want to start it over again. But, you know, I sit there and, you know, it never gets old. It's timeless.
Yeah. And usually when we talk about any movie, we always kind of start off with like, well, have you seen this before? I didn't even feel the need to ask that. Right. I mean, like, we've all seen this 1,000 times, right? Not only have we seen this one a dozen times, we've seen all the sequels, you know, a number of times. Although that fourth and fifth one, right, we were having a discussion offline. Like, Smoak, you said you didn't remember if you've seen those last two, I think?
I know I didn't see the latest one that came out in 2014 or whatever, and I'm pretty sure I didn't see the one in 2007 either. So, yeah, those two, I still have to watch those. I have to catch those two still.
My recollection,
maybe we'll do them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll get around to them some way, somehow. You know, and all the stuff that we do for here, you know, for the podcast and on YouTube. But I'd say, you know, if you enjoy these movies, at least the first 2 or 3 movies, it's worth watching, you know, just at least once. It's worth watching. Yeah. Although my recollection is they're not nearly as good as the first 3. So it's kind of, you know, but we're used to meh here on the Spook Show. So.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it's such a treat to, you know, get a classic like this.
Yeah. We don't get movies like this very often. We really don't. You know, we've gotten to the point now where we're doing the cult corner and everything, so we do get these kind of movies here on the show. But yeah, they're the exception rather than the rule. You know,
plus we try to spread them out a little bit, so we're not just doing all bona fide classics in a row, which would be great, great for us as far as like, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't have to deal with some of the stinkers, but we got to watch the stinkers for the people, for ourselves and for the people out there to, you know.
Yeah, like I said, we took a little.
Everything great all the time.
Like I said, we took a little break from Cult Corner because of, you know, we had a lot of stuff lined up for the month of October. But the last Cult Corner that we did before this was Memento, which, you know, once again, another awesome movie. But the one before that was Summer Camp 1979. So that that gives you the broad scope and spectrum of. Yeah. Of god awfulness and goodness that we present here on Cult Corner.
Yeah, some inevitably, these movies that none of us have seen, that if maybe one or two of us had seen, we'd know. Well, this is more for a crapster. We would know that, but we don't know that going into it. So sometimes these movies that are, they're going to be crapster piece material that we just haven't seen.
Yeah, sometimes it catches it.
Reflect.
Once again, like Summer Camp '79, that caught us with our pants down. It was,
never seen that or knew what it was.
Yeah, and now we wish we had never seen it.
Cool,
Argyle, man. Yeah, like what a great character name.
Yeah,
great character.
You
name.
Remember it too. Like you'll remember the name and this character honestly more than you will the actor that played Argyle.
Yeah.
But that's not taking anything away from him. You just like you said, it's a memorable character, memorable name, and
now
it goes just talking about him and other things in the movie. It's not so much directly towards Argyle, but other things in this movie. How many things that have a setup and a payoff in this movie? It's so perfectly done.
Yeah.
By not just the direction, but the guys that wrote the screenplay and everything. It's so fucking perfectly done. Like every little thing. The guy on the plane that tells him like scrunch your toes up into a ball on the carpet or whatever, and then like later on he does it. And, like just simple little things like that. All throughout this movie.
There's no loose ends. Everything's tied up.
Yeah.
As far as not plot points, of course, but those little things that they. As you say, introduced at certain points, they were always followed through as well. So
as simple as him killing one of the guys and taking his shoes because he doesn't have his shoes on. Right when the shit goes down, he's got his shoes off because of the ball up your feet on the carpet bit. Right.
Yeah.
So the whole movie he's without shoes, but he kills the first guy and he's like, "Oh, I picked the one terrorist that has shoes, smaller than my sister's feet or something like that."
Yeah.
So then, that sets up the rest of the movie. Is like, his feet are, as goofy as it sounds, are a big part of this movie because throughout you're just like, oh fuck, like his feet are getting shredded to hell, like walking through glass and everything that happens, So like you said, every little snippet, every little breadcrumb along the way, all has a payoff or is tied
also,
up.
We talked about Argyle, and he's. Going through the features of this limo, fully stocked limo, in 1988 had a CD player, a CB radio, a TV, telephone, full bar, and VHS player.
VHS.
Now the VHS player, we don't get. There's no real, payoff there. But almost each one of those components have a do play a role, play a part.
Like even the CB, like he realizes and everything. I love that he's just sitting in the limo pretty much the entire movie before he realizes. He's right up underneath the building that's being held by terrorists. Although it is 30 stories up, right? So you can forgive him for that.
Yeah. And that whole limo scene from the beginning, anyway, is funny too because like when he gets there and picks him up, he's like, "Oh, I've never driven a limo before. I'm new at this." And then Bruce Willis says, "Well, I've never ridden in a limo before." And then he gets in the front like a cab or like a
cab.
He gets in the front with Argyle and just chit chats with him because he's never ridden a limo. He doesn't get in the back and do all that. So that sets up another their dynamic, I guess, between the two of them on the ride there. Because if he's sitting in the back, he's not really going to be conversating with him, So that kind of set up their dynamic well,
and that's even paid off in the sense of like a limo driver that has been doing this for years would probably know, like, all right, I need to move on to the next job or whatever the fuck, right? Like because this dude is new, he's just like, well, fuck, I'll just go hang out. Like he's like once again, it's like he's a cab driver.
Yeah, and there's also at the end, he said, well, I say at the end, but yeah. I guess Argyle breaks through the cages or whatever.
Yeah, the gates.
He's like, no, this one's with me.
Yeah. By the way, in this scenario, right? I'll just add poking holes once again. In this scenario of a terrorist attack, god awfulness has gone down. The building has gone to hell. If a limo comes bashing through a gate at the end of this, I guarantee you, like he's getting lit up. Like every cop and every federal agent are just gonna like that whole. You're not just gonna wave it off from one guy. He's with me. No, that's not the way that's gonna end, buddy.
Yeah.
Argyle's dead.
God, man, there's so much in there.
That guy at the desk. It's not Huey Lewis, right? It's the other guy that Huey
Dennis
Lewis.
Hayden.
It's the other guy that Huey
Eddie.
Lewis. No, the first guy, the guy that Huey Lewis kills, right? Because remember, he becomes the guy at the desk, right? When McClane walks in and he makes him look at the monitor to find her name, right? That's where the whole Gennaro, where she changed her name, that whole scene where he's at the touchscreen. But then after he's like, it says here they're on floor 29 or 30 or whatever it is. And he's like, oh yeah, they're the only ones in the building. If they're the only ones in the building, why the fuck did you make him stand there and look that up on that monitor? You can just say, all right, well, the only people in the building are, so go up there instead. You make me waste 5 minutes looking for my wife's name here, buddy. And then right after that, that's where you're introduced to fucking Ellis.
Oh, man. You know what? All of it. We either all know an Ellis or have known an Ellis. God, man. What a prick. You know, but just like he plays that part well.
Oh, dude, he nails it.
Yeah.
He's the and there's a couple of, I mean, like, you know, we'll jump ahead. Fucking Thornburg, right? they really nailed the assholes in this movie, right? And there's a couple others, you know, obviously all the terrorists and everything, but like they really nailed just the peripheral assholes in this
William
movie.
Atherton.
Yeah, well, he's a professional asshole, right? You know, like that's just his gig, and
he's always playing the dickhead
in movies and television. That's just his thing. Like, wasn't he the same dude in Ghostbusters that like?
Yep.
Yeah. See, so there. Yes,
it's true. This man has no dick.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like it's just Thornburg. I mean, Thornburg's an ass, you know, and he gets his, and then he comes back in the. That's in the second movie. Yeah, I was going to say the third, but no, he's back in the second movie as well. But yeah, Ellis. I mean, you hate the dude, but you end up feeling sorry for the guy because he's such a overbearing jackass that it costs him his life, you know. But still, you know, and he plays that stereotype '80s business guy too, right? You know, snorting cocaine, you know, all about the stocks and making money and everything. You know, just the excess of the '80s as far as money wise, right? Like Wall Street and all that shit. So he kind of encompasses all those stereotypes as well.
Not quite as psychotic as Patrick Bateman from American Psycho type 80s.
No, that's a whole different kind of...
Just going ape shit about the business card.
Yeah. But it did make me wish, though, now granted, minus the terrorism and getting taken hostage part, I wish that I could have went to a corporate party like that was in this movie, right? Like by the time I come along to like, you know, I work in the TV news business. Like, apparently they used to have parties, maybe not quite to this extreme, right? But they used to have parties back then at the holidays where they like everybody gets dressed up in suits and tuxedos and whatnot and goes to like a ballroom or a hotel, real nice place, and everybody's drinking and, you know, they're having a good time or whatever, right? Like by the time our age comes along and we get to this point where we could do things like this, these things aren't allowed. Like, I don't think businesses do these kind of things anymore.
Well, actually, yeah, I've been, you know, in some corporate parties, but like we never really dressed up at all.
That's what I mean. Like to this extent, it always seemed like, and maybe this is a bill of goods we get sold for growing up when we didn't watching '80s movies and shit. But it always seemed that like, oh yeah, when you get older, yeah, you're gonna go to parties, everybody's screwing, drinking, and doing cocaine. You know, where I've never been to anything close. Like the only parties I've ever been to is like, well, we got some cookies and we've got some punch over there, and you know, you get to hang out for 20 minutes and you get back to work. You know, they got like a whole fucking thing going on here.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe that's just the '80s bill of goods. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. But no, God, there's so many lines in here.
Oh, you mean the one-liners? Yeah, you yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah, welcome to the party, pal.
I'm always partial to Roy Rogers, actually.
Yeah, cowboy, Mr. Takagi. I always just get Hans Gruber lines. You know, like that's all I ever do when I think about it. I just think about him saying Mr. Takagi. You know.
We'll talk about him a little bit. Alan Rickman. Yeah, I think this was his first movie. He had just moved to America like a few days before he got the offer for this role or whatever. And I think he decided he wasn't going to take it because it was it was an action role that he thought, and a villain in an action movie. And what happened was, he did get stereotyped for a while.
Yeah, well,
getting the villain roles.
Most of it, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, right? Most of his career he was another professional asshole, right? Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, all those Harry Potter movies. That's just to name a few, right? There's tons of them. He was always just a snobby kind of dickhead in all of his movies. He played it perfectly.
But yeah, man, Sergeant Powell.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, how can we, this generation, not see this just fucking Carl, right? Like,
Yeah.
Right, from Family Matters.
Yeah, Carl from Family Matters.
It's hard to shake,
Yeah.
Even though this is one, honestly, I might have seen this movie maybe before Family Matters. I don't remember. Like for me, timeline wise, I don't remember if I saw this.
I'm fairly positive I saw this before.
Family Matters was probably, 91-ish, 92? 90, 91, 92? Without looking it up. So, like, my point is that, like, I don't, this isn't the thing that I think of for him. And I'm sure I'm, not unlike most people, you're going to think of him as the dad next door in Family Matters. But right there, next to that, it's this. It's right next to it.
Family Matters was 89.
Okay, so it's right after this.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. So odds are probably, knowing just how old I was and everything, I probably saw Family Matters first, if I had to guess. But it's probably all in that same time period. Because I don't remember the first time I saw Die Hard, but I'd say, now Smoak, you're a little older than us, so you probably got to see it pretty much right away. But like, I might have seen it like a year or two later, something like that.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater when this one came out. Okay, I was 15 or so.
Yeah, I'm probably like you, Josh. I probably watched Family Matters.
I know I didn't see this in the theater. I was 8 years old. And we weren't going to go see Die Hard, but I don't put it past, like, watching it on HBO or something, whenever, a year or so later, though, I probably might have. So either way, point is that our generation, you're probably going to remember him first for Family Matters and then this. But yeah, he nails it in this. He really does. Although it's probably unlikely in a real life scenario that it would play out like that, right? Wouldn't you think they'd probably just take the microphone away from him?
Oh yeah. Yeah, especially once the FBI got there.
Yeah, he's done. Like he's not talking to him anymore, unless he steals a radio or something and gets on another band or something like that. It is funny the conversation and the play back and forth throughout the entire movie is all taking place on like an open channel, right? Like, with the bad guys listening.
Yeah.
Like they didn't give a fuck really either way, right? Plot line wise, like, well, wouldn't the bad guys figure some shit out listening and vice versa? Like, it's pointed out when they kind of figure out some shit listening to the bad guys, the terrorists, right? But it's not, you don't read so much into throughout the movie of the terrorists figuring stuff out about them. They do, right? I mean, it's a part, but like, it seems like it played one side more than the other throughout the entire movie. And it took Gruber way too long to figure out that Holly was his wife, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably the last 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah, it's toward the end. Like, the last 15, 20 minutes, because he finally realizes it and then kind of takes her hostage, and that's his last little, thing that he's, trying to, that's his last hope to get out, basically.
Yeah, and also the way that John goes on his McClane goes on his I don't want to say rampage, but ends up shooting this guy through the table, shooting him in his legs, killing him, and then strapped the I guess just threw him out of the
he broke a window and just threw him out.
Threw him out.
That's
landed
how he
on.
Because Sergeant Powell pulls up, nothing's going on here, and then a damn body flies through his windshield. Oh shit! And then he just backs up, he puts it in reverse and then goes down a hill and everything. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny the way he finally got his attention. Like, that's how. But even that, it took a while. Like, it's like,
welcome to the party, too. Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah, that was where that came. That's what the line came from. Welcome to the party, pal. I mean, like, but if you think about it, dude, like, as long as this movie is, even that scene, that's probably 45 minutes to an hour into the movie before before he finally gets some help, quote unquote, from the cops.
I'll tell you what, man, like this, it's perfect pacing because you don't feel in a minute of like, you never really get a chance to, just kind of release yourself because you're always on edge from
There's a couple of moments of being able to catch your breath. Like, remember when he cut his foot up and he's sitting there talking to him on the radio about his wife?
Oh, there's that. But
even that's kind of high intensity because you're watching him take glass out of his foot. So even that, it's intense, but like there are brief moments in there where you can kind of like, oh fuck, kind of catch your breath, and then bam, you're right back into it. But yeah, I mean, it's the pacing, and it's just pretty much nonstop action throughout. I mean, something's always happening to progress the story forward.
Also, talking about his feet, I guess we should mention the prosthetics. Did you ever notice those in the movie? Like when he's running across the floor with the glass, he wore like fake feet over his feet. Like he had like these feet that look like feet, like bare feet over his. So I'd known about this before, but if you watch those scenes a little closely, you can tell that those feet are a little bit bigger than his normal feet, or they're a little bit. You can tell that they're prosthetics if you pay close attention. If you really look at it, and those long kind of longer shots or whatever when he's running across, you'll notice it now.
That he's got hobbit feet. Right.
yeah. It's pretty much. I mean, not quite to that extent, but you can tell that they're a little bit on that. Yeah, they just don't look quite right. They're just a little bit bigger. I
always thought it was badass when he kills. I think it's when he kills the first guy, and then he takes the gun or whatever, and then he writes on the guy's shirt in blood. Now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho.
Yeah.
When he put him in the elevator.
Awesome.
Yeah, like I mean, he's just the entire time he's just fucking with these guys. Like. Until, they finally start to really strike back. But yeah, I mean, it's just so awesome. I mean, the whole thing. And then how he blows up an entire fucking floor of the building just to get the cops to back off. Cause like the cops are coming, like they think they know better. And he's telling them like, look, these dudes are professionals. Like you need to back the fuck up. And they're like, we got it. And they're sending in a tank and all this shit. And I mean, they do like a fucking like, missile launcher, right? Like twice like, on the damn like, little rolling RV tank thing or whatever.
Yeah.
They've got some
little APC.
Yeah, but like he takes some C4 like then he tie it to a chair or something and push it down the elevator shaft and then
wraps a fatback monitor to it.
Yeah, and then pushes it down and it just takes out an entire floor of the building. That's how he gets them to back up.
That's awesome.
How about the scene when Gruber finally meets McClane? But McClane doesn't know it. Like he doesn't know that it's Gerber. But the horrible American accent, so to speak, that.
Yeah, and you could tell he broke it a couple of times.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. It seems like he was trying his best, but he couldn't Alan Rickman himself. He just couldn't do it.
That was pretty good, man.
Oh God! Help me! Don't shoot me!
It was at that moment that John McClane realized, he's like, I'm giving this motherfucker an empty gun when I.
Yeah.
When he had the gun, the empty gun.
Yeah.
And that one scene where he's trying to shoot him. Like...
Yeah, and then McClane versus Carl.
Yeah, well, that's one of the big build-ups because I think the first guy he takes out is like Carl's brother, right?
His brother.
So now like. Yeah. He's kind of on his own side mission to take this dude out because he killed his brother, and then it finally comes to a head, and they have probably the biggest epic fight of the movie.
Yeah, because McClane and Gruber, there wasn't really a fight.
Not really. No,
there was a struggle.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a struggle, and then it just kind of ended in an epic way. Whereas, the biggest fight, was with this dude, and then he ends up hanging him.
My favorite part of that is when Carl tries to karate chop. He tries to karate chop John McClane. And it was just like, it was so like, I don't know. It was just hilarious. It made me laugh. It just
really, what the hell was the point of this group anyways? Like they made it seem like they had some grand plan, right? And maybe that was Hans Gruber's cover was like, release members of Asian Dawn and all this shit, right? They had a lot of red herrings and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately they were just there to steal money, right?
Yeah, basically.
I think in the end, he's like, that's what this was all about.
Yeah, their plan was it was like $600 and something million. I think it was what he was saying. That would be like that along those lines. And then they planned to blow up the building or partial part, or whatever it was, to use the C4 to blow up certain part of the building to make it look like they were killed, so that they wouldn't be hunted down after the fact.
Yeah, and that was the whole roof chopper explosion, which is an epic fucking scene where they basically blow up the roof, right, with all that C4, and then they blow up the helicopter the FBI helicopter that had landed there, and then it rolls down the side of the building and everything. I mean, it's an epic, just if you just like big explosions and action movies and just all hell breaking loose, it's an epic scene.
Now, also the fire hose scene with the rooftop. That was it's just a fun scene. Yeah, man.
you have to like
call it what it is.
Is it unlikely? Yeah, probably. But is it fun? Hell yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like there was a couple of things in there. Like, remember when he goes down the elevator shaft and he puts the gun in the door or whatever, and then like he kind of goes down to the next level with just the strap from the gun. Like, all right, no. There's a few.
There was a show, and it was I don't want to say it was a long time ago. It's probably at least maybe 15 years ago. But it was just like, it was, it wasn't Mythbusters, but it was something before Mythbusters, and it was like things that you've seen on screen. Could it happen? For real? And that would be one of the things. They would just be like, no, there's no way.
No, it's probably impossible. But is there any moment more epic and more memorable other than from this movie, other than say, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, some of the quotes, than Hans Gruber falling to his death? I mean, like, dude, that is like a Hollywood pitch reel scene. You know what I mean? And it's and I guess we could take a minute to mention just how well shot this movie is. I mean, it just looks awesome, and it even holds up. How many ever years it's been later? What is this? 35 years later, whatever the hell we're knocking on it. It holds up. I mean, it looks great. It looks like something that was shot. Other than just the datedness of it, right? The styles,
forget the technology and all that.
Put that to the side. I mean, it looks like something that was just shot, in the last few years. I mean, it just looks great.
Yeah, like all of the action scenes, I mean, everything still holds up.
I mean, I watched it on the Blu-ray. This was the 25th anniversary Blu-ray that came out, a handful of years back, and I watched it on a 4K player. So maybe that upscaled it a little bit, but I mean, it looked great. It really did look great. And that scene, getting back to the point, that scene of Gerber falling and everything is just so well shot, and it just still looks awesome to this day. And I didn't really dig deep into the technicalities on how they pulled that off, but
actually,
it looks really
know
good.
About it. They were shooting. Alan Rickman. They had a hold of him. And then they said, okay, we're going to let you go on the count of 3. And they said 1, and then they let him go. So that...
so you get that genuine, oh, shit.
Oh, shit. Like, reaction from him.
Yeah.
And
you can see it in his face. I mean, like, so
Yeah.
That explains why it's just not that he was a good actor, and he was, but
it's genuine. Genuine shock.
Yeah. It really is like I said, a Hollywood pitch reel type of moment. Like you're just showing random scenes from the best Hollywood movies ever made.
Yep.
That might be in that pitch reel. You know what I mean? That highlight reel, so to speak, of just great moments, great shot moments, just perfect. I mean, you want this guy to get it so bad that when you finally get it, it's like, yeah, there we go. You know,
yeah,
It's perfect.
Yeah. Talk about the setup and payoff.
Yeah, and once again, the setup of Powell, right? Like, they planted the seeds where he talked with McClane about like why is
shooting a kid?
Yeah, why is he a flatfoot, so to speak? You know, why is he doing this? And it's because he accidentally shot a 13-year-old kid, so he's been busted down to the street again or whatever, and you get the final moment at the end when Carl comes back from the dead. I mean, you just kind of assume Carl got hung by chains. He's dead. But no, motherfucker comes raging out of there like a zombie. But Powell was the one that took Carl down. You know, like he pulls the gun out and bam, you know, he took him out. So that was the last big moment. Other than Holly punching Thornburg, right? That was the.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Powell had actually said when he was talking with McClane, he said, I haven't been able to draw my weapon on anyone since.
Yeah, so it made that moment even, as corny and cliche as it could have been, right? You still were like, fuck yeah. Like there's like at least 3 or 4 times there at the end where you're like, hell yeah, fuck yeah. Like everything just pays off perfectly, man. Like right at the end, it ends the way you want it to end. And it literally ends with, John gets his woman back and they get in the limo, right? And you got a happy ending. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome movie. Smoak, I guess we'll start with you. We'll go ahead and get into the star ratings. What are your thoughts and what's your star rating on it?
It's a bona fide classic. I mean, they didn't put it into the Library of Congress for nothing, which we didn't mention that in the show. But this movie's actually been admitted into the Library of Congress for being culturally, aesthetically, and whatever piece of sentimental art. So it grows. I don't know what the list of movies are that are in the Library of Congress. I'm sure it's probably pretty extensive. But I mean, but they're all of some sort of cultural value.
And there's probably not a whole bunch of 80s action movies in there.
Oh, yeah.
I know for a fact Night of the Living Dead is in there because I've read about that one being in it. So yeah, there's, and I would be shocked if Citizen Kane wasn't in there or whatever, so I'm sure there's a bunch of various, bona fide classic masterpieces.
Yeah, just the fact that Die Hard is sharing the same room with some of those movies is like, wow, that's that should speak volumes.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a perfect action flick. I mean, well, it's got everything in it that an action flick should have, other than action too. It's got good drama, it's got tension, it's got excellent acting by everybody that I can think of in this movie. Not just the main people, what you expect, but all the incidental actors were great too. So, and I could watch this over and over again. I don't know what the count is that I've seen this one. But if the movie could do that, if you could, I could sit down like after we were done with this and watch this again. I mean, it wouldn't be anything for me to do that, to watch it all over again from the beginning. I can watch and look for other things. Look for Bruce Willis's oversized feet in the glass thing.
Now, before you get into the rating, I will add real quickly, this is Cult Corner, so the scale is a little different than, say, our normal scale, when we talk about horror movies, every other week. And, of course, all the other things that we do. But in specific to, like, you are actually free to compare Die Hard to, say, Godfather or Citizen Kane and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, you are free to actually compare it in a fair, even playing field kind of way. So with that in mind, go ahead.
Yeah, and with that in mind, and even if we were doing this on the show, on our regular show, I mean, if it were horror, whatever the case, but it would still get a really high, and super, it'd be up there. It'd be way up there. So, but yeah, like you said, it's not necessarily as much of a sliding scale as Cannon Fodder or some of the other things we do, but it is, the Cult Corner is a little bit graded a little bit higher or lower, depending on what the movie,
summer camp,
but it is, how good or terrible it might be. This one is way up there, though. Of course, this is top-notch action. I can't, for the Cult Corner especially, I can't go any lower than a 5. It is a quintessential action film and a quintessential cult film. Even though it's a Hollywood blockbuster, I mean, we could have that argument. Oh, this is the blockbuster. Is it still a cult film? This is, especially now at this point we're in, this is a cult film. And it's also a Christmas movie, so there's that.
In my mind, and once again, I think, it bears repeating that, look, this is our show. We make the rules, right? But I think they're not mutually exclusive, right? It can be a blockbuster and a cult movie. And I think this is an example of it. Like, because the fans of this movie are rabid about it. Like they love these type of movies, and they're the ones that go see Die Hard 4 and 5 too, even though those aren't compared. But it's got fans. It's got a rabid core following of fans. So I think in that regard, it kind of falls into that cult category. But yeah, Donnie, what are your thoughts?
Certified classic. It's still timeless. Still relevant. Man. This movie is, I love this movie, and my rating's going to reflect it. Smoak's pretty much said it all. Not much left to, I would echo his sentiments as well. And I will echo his rating as well and give it 5 stars.
This is rare air, but I think we're going to agree. And I don't hand out 5s. I really don't, but I'm going to here. I mean, this really is, like, as far as action movies are concerned, this is top notch. I mean, yeah, are there some that I like better? There might be a few, but dude, this one's top 5 for sure for me, as far just specific to action films. Maybe even top 3 for me. I mean, it's way up there, high marks. I mean, it's perfect. It's perfect for everything it wants to be. It delivers. So I mean, what more can you say? So that means we've got a consensus of 5 stars across the board. So until we get Will's thoughts, you never know what he might feel, but I'm pretty sure he's going to feel. He may not feel 5, but he's going to feel pretty high. Along with us. I'm sure he's not too far off, but we don't do the kill count. We don't do the gore score because this is Cult Corner, but we do have.
Donny, where's the cult connections? Come on,
man. I remember when you pulled that out the first time. It was actually the Warriors when we did that one.
Yep.
Yep. Good stuff.
Oh, this will keep going, so I'll go ahead and.
I appreciate it.
I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah.
Nah. So So I guess it was before the show, before we started recording. I had mentioned I kind of had maybe a surprising connection. But yeah. So if you're joining us on this, on this episode, what we do with cult connections, crypt connections, and also crap connections, and canon connections. What we do is we take the current film, the current movie episode, and we connect it via cast and crew to past Spookshow episodes. So with this one, actually he's more of a bit player, bit actor, but he's his setup is pay off throughout the movie. The businessman at the beginning of the movie where he's sitting on the plane beside John McClane. The actor's name is Robert Lesser, and he was in a past Spook Show episode of The Monster Squad, where he played Eugene's dad. And also he was in Christmas Evil, where he played a detective. So yeah, definitely check those out in the Spook Show archives.
I don't remember him from Christmas Evil. I don't, but I do remember him from Monster Squad. Now that you say that, I remember the face. Yeah. Yeah,
and on the crew side, Joel Silver, producer. He was also a producer of previous Spook Show episodes, House of Wax, The Warriors, our first Cult Corner episode, and Tales from the Crypt, Demon Night, the mashup episode we had with Cinema 9 podcast. So all of that is in the archives if you want to check.
That's a little unsurprising. I think he had something to do, or a lot to do, with the Tales from the Crypt series.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, there we go. So like I said, we don't do the kill count and the gore score and everything like that, but needless to say, if there was a gore score, it'd probably be pretty high for, just for what happens in the movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that this movie definitely didn't skimp on, and that can be said for a lot of R-rated movies in the 80s. But this one really pushed that, I think, pushed the violence level and the blood. I mean, how many blood squibs were there in this movie? There's a lot of blood squibs in this movie.
What did I say? The budget,
like really splattery blood squibs too. Yeah.
What did I say? The budget was $28 million. I want to say it was what we. Yeah, they probably spent about $20 million of that on blood.
Yeah,
and blood squibs,
and then just this whole the glass scene. I mean, whose ever idea that was? Right? That was yeah.
That's some good stuff. It's some cringy shit, especially with the feet. Right, real cringy. Oh fuck, But yeah, it's an awesome movie. Great. I mean 5 stars. What more can you say, right? I mean, it's fucking awesome. Great way to kick off the holiday season too, with this one. I think great way. But with that being said, next week, episode 137, we're going to be talking about an older Christmas movie, but that's all we can tell you right now because as of the recording of this, we haven't all come together and decided exactly what we're going to be watching just yet next week. So look to aaspookshow.com, look to the socials. We'll make some announcement about what's coming up because we need to kind of put our heads together and figure out how we're going to play through the holidays here. But we've got, needless to say, we've got a couple things lined up. We know what we're going to be doing. We just need to kind of come together and make sure we're all on the same page, and then we'll make some announcements on that. So, really, I guess that's about it for this week, guys. This the latest Cult Corner was a lot of fun. So stick with us throughout the entire Christmas season. We got lots coming up. Hopefully Will can join us for it next week. Hopefully he's feeling better. And hopefully you've all come down from your, what is that in Turkey, Smoak? Tryptophan, whatever it is, where you start passing out and falling asleep and stuff like that. From hopefully you've kicked off all the Thanksgiving stuff. You're shaking that off, and you're doing your shopping, and you're getting ready for Christmas. So it all starts in earnest now. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donny, Professor Smoak, I'm Josh. We are from the All American Spook Show podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.